No, I was just talking to him during the last commercial breakdown, and Tom Glavine has been coming to spring training with the Major League Ball Club for the Atlanta Braves on the 40-man roster since 1987, into his second decade now as an Atlanta Brave. And Tom, you've been through it all. You've been through those late 80s years when the team was down at the bottom of the league. You've been through the championship years, winning World Series, winning National League championships. Every spring training takes on its own perspective. How did this one rank?
This has kind of been the year of change, I guess, more than anything. You know, obviously we come in here and our goals as a club are the same. Let's get back to a World Series and try and win the World Series. But I think we came in here this year with a sense that there was going to be some changes. I don't think any of us envisioned the changes that we've had, or at least the amount that we've had. And certainly not this late in spring training. I think you kind of anticipate these things to happen earlier on. But, you know, this last week, we're definitely going to need some name tags going in that clubhouse.
Do you think all of the expectations and perhaps some of the fear some of the players might have had that it might be me might explain, and you may not agree with what I'm about to say next, but I spent about 2 weeks down there, just came back up here a couple days ago, and I had a sense of a little bit of flatness, a little bit of staleness, a little bit of I don't want to say complacency, but things just didn't seem to be as up as they should be for a defending National League champion.
No, you're probably right. It affects guys. How much they admit it or how much it affects the play on the field, I don't know. But, I mean, you know, there's a number of guys on that team this year that were wondering, well, am I going to be the guy? I mean, you know, David obviously thought about it a lot. You know, Freddie probably thought about it a lot. Lemke probably thought about it a lot. And you know, I think in this day and age, we all realize that none of us are inexpendable. So, you know, when that kind of stuff is going around, everybody's talking about it. And whether you're the guy that's directly involved or not, you know, maybe those three guys are the three guys that were talked about all the time, but the other 30 guys in camp are wondering about it, so you always got something that's on your mind.
So things might settle down a bit now, you think, that all these moves have been made?
I hope so. You know, we're going to have a few days here to get used to Kenny and Alan Embry, and now the two guys that we're bringing in, and you know, Tucker and Lockhart from Kansas City. So hopefully this next week or so we can get to know those guys, and everybody can kind of put to rest, well, what's our team going to look like, and are we going to be any good this year, and just kind of realize that this is who we've got, and realize that the roster we have right now is a pretty solid one, and let's move on and try and win some ball games.
We talked with excuse me, Denny Nagel earlier, and he's going to be pitching the first regular season game at the new Turner Field, but you actually get the first game ever at Turner Field. That'll be this Saturday against the New York Yankees. What's your take on the new place? I know all of you pitchers are kind of looking at that foul territory with a little bit of a smirk on your face.
Well, we are. I mean, like people have asked me about it before, and like I've said, you know, we're going to lose a lot of foul territory over there, and how much that's going to affect the way the game is played over there, that's something we're all going to have to wait and see. But personally, I'm looking forward to pitching there at least one time before the regular season, so I can at least get out there and kind of get acclimated to the place and see how comfortable I'm going to be. Regardless of how beautiful the place is and how great it may be, there's going to be an acclimation period for all of us. And you know, I'm fortunate, like I say, that as a pitcher, I'm going to get a chance to get out there and get on that mound and see what it's like before I have to pitch when it counts.
You've actually had a chance to break in 2 new ballparks in like 3 days, because today you were among the small group of Braves pitchers who were not going over to Tampa tonight, who came to the ballpark. You and Greg Maddux and Denny Nagel all came to throw here at this new facility in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, the Disney Wide World of Sports Complex. What's your first take on this?
Again, you can't help but be impressed by this place. The stadium itself is beautiful. The field looks great, you know, but really, I think the sense you get for how tremendous it is I had an opportunity to drive around the complex a little bit and see everything else that was here that you were talking about. I mean, the minor league fields are spectacular. There's some little league fields back here that I would have dreamed about playing on when I was a kid, and that's only half of it. I mean, you got this field house behind us that's got 6 regulation and NBA courts in there, and then the football field and the volleyball courts. I mean, it goes on and on. It truly is a wide world of sports here, so it's pretty impressive. And
it will be the spring training home of the Atlanta Braves beginning next year. And I don't know if you can see this, but right over my shoulder back there where the minor league complex is, has to be a first. I have never seen a minor league spring training field with lights, but we have them here at Lake Buena Vista. Thank you very much, Tom. Have a good year. We look forward to another great season out of Tom Glavine, and we'll be back with more of this preseason special right after this.
This spectacular view is provided by the Bud 1 airship, which was seen by millions as it flew the skies over the Centennial Olympic Games in Atlanta. And now we are in the Braves clubhouse where Don was earlier, and Pete joins us from Orlando. A little roundtable discussion here. Let's start with you, Pete. The trades have really shaken things up. Some people love them, some people hate them, but everybody's talking about them. What do you think?
I like him. I like the trades mainly because of the question I just asked Tom Glavine earlier. I thought that the first 3 weeks or so of the spring training games down here, the team looked a little flat, looked a little lifeless out there in the field, and I think they needed to have something like this happen to shake them up a little bit, to get them going. And I also think that the addition of a Kenny Lofton-type player to the offense gives the Braves an element they've not had since, I guess, the Otis Nixon days here. It gives the Braves a pure leadoff hitter who can steal a lot of bases. Marquise Grissom, as good a ball player as he was, his base stealing prowess had gone down the last 3 or 4 years, so I think the addition of Lofton gives the Braves another way to score runs. The pitching seems to be falling into place now. The addition of Embry hopefully will help resolve the left-handed side of the bullpen, but I like this club a lot better now than I did last Monday when I left West Palm Beach to come up north.
Don Sutton, your views.
Well, Skip, a guy asked me a question today that I had to think before I gave him an answer to. He said, would you trade Esteban Yan, Roberto Kelly, Tony Tarasco, David Justice, and Marquise Grissom for Lofton and Embry? Which is pretty much what it's boiled down to. And after thinking about it, I said, no, I wouldn't, but I would trade those 5 guys for Lofton, Embry, Maddox, and Glavine. And that's pretty much what it is boiled down to, because as John Sherholtz said earlier, we're in a different economic environment now, and this may have created the situation where we do have the money to keep those 2 players, and may show that this ball club may be heading in a little different direction.
Well, I think so too. And anybody who says money or economics isn't part of this is insane. It has to be. It may not be great for baseball, Joe Simpson, but it's the way things are in this day and age.
Well, there's that old adage, Skip, about in baseball terminology about trades that you don't really evaluate a trade for about a year to find out if it was a good or bad one. This time next year in spring training, if Tom Glavine and Greg Maddox are still in Braves uniforms, thanks to the flexibility that John Sherholtz talked about with his payroll, and thanks to the deal, then it will have been an outstanding deal. I keep thinking back to how I dreaded seeing Kenny Lofton come to the plate every at-bat in the World Series 2 years ago, and it seemed like he batted every inning and was sure a pain in the side of the Braves.
By the way, just a personal aside, yesterday we had a little rehearsal here, and I was walking out, and as I was walking out, Marquise Grissom was driving into the news stadium trying to find his luggage, which he had sent back to Atlanta. He had gone to the old ballpark, couldn't find it there because everything was locked up. And he was just the same first class. In fact, he came up to me and said, hey, thanks for everything. I started almost crying. He's thanking me. The great years he had here, we just hope he and David and everybody else does well where they go, and that it's a cliche, but you want the deal, Pete, I guess, to help both clubs, don't you?
Yeah, you do, and I think the players really understand the differences now. The economically sound ball clubs are able to afford to do a few more things than the economically weak ones. There's going to be a lot of juggling of payrolls year in and year out in these ball clubs, and the players understand there's going to be a lot of moving around. They of course, hope it's not going to be them that's going to be doing most of the moving, but they are willing, I think, a little more so now than ever to accept moves such as that. Just to give you an indication of what Kenny Lofton can mean to the ball club, we just got an update from Tampa. The Braves and Yankees playing over there. They're in the top half of the 7th inning now. Braves have taken a 2-1 lead thanks to a Chipper Jones home run, his first homer, by the way, of spring training. But Kenny Lofton in the lineup tonight, playing his first game as a Brave, has gone 2 for 4, and he's already stolen a base. And that's the kind of a leadoff man that we've got now in Kenny Lofton that we had in Marquise Grissom, but I think you're going to see a better base stealer in Lofton, and for that reason, I think a little more explosiveness at the top of the order.
Okay, Pete, let's talk a little bit about who's going to win the respective divisions as we put on our little Swami hats. Don Sutton,
we're always so good at this.
Oh, yes. Terrific. Every year we humiliate ourselves yet again.
Well, let me take a first shot at it. I think Seattle over in the American League West has one of the best-looking ball clubs over there, so I'm picking them to win. I think Cleveland I think they've made deals now that are going to make them the front runner there, and I don't think you're going to be able to replace Robin Ventura, and Navarro is absolutely no Fernandez for the Chicago White Sox. New York and Baltimore are probably going to battle it out. Best race in baseball, I'm thinking it may be L.A., San Diego, and Colorado. That is going to be a good race. St. Louis, I think, will probably do it again in the Central. And I think we have our work cut out for us here in the East. Florida has made some tremendous improvements. They always say you don't win on paper, but when you hand that piece of paper to Jim Leland, it's a little bit different deal.
Well, we talk about economics, and they have bitten the bullet in that area and really gotten themselves some fine players. Joe, you start with the American League because you spent a lot of time over there, and I know you've got it faded.
Oh, I've got it worked out just to a T. In fact, I've got my old ball club, the Mariners, right where Don put them, and that's at the top of the heap. I expect them to get to the World Series. They've got maybe the best hitting lineup in the American League, and I agree that Cleveland has improved themselves with some great National League players, not the least of which the 2 Braves, but also Matt Williams. And don't forget, they also signed Robbie Thompson, who may start on the bench for Cleveland, but he might find himself as an everyday player again at second base for the Tribe. And in the American League, my surprise team I'm going to predict will be the Blue Jays. They've also spent a lot of money to get back to where they once were as world champions, and they've added some veteran players, but I like the Toronto Blue Jays a lot. In the National League, yeah, I think the Marlins have improved themselves all the way up to a wild card spot, right behind the Braves in the East. And the one team that you mentioned, like the Rockies in the West, I think it'll be a battle between the Padres and the Dodgers. I think the Rockies, because of their woes on the road, I think they're going to run into problems this year, and they're not going to win it in the West. And I'm pulling for the Cubs in the Central.
So am I. Professor, how you got it?
I got Louisville in the American Association, and I've got Rochester in the International League. As far as the big leagues go, I agree with Joe that Toronto could be a very big surprise team in the American League this year. The other choices, I think we're all pretty much in agreement with. Seattle looks like the team to beat in the West. Cleveland looks like the team to beat in the Central. New York, Baltimore, and I think Toronto will be in a three-way battle in the East. Over in the National League, I agree that the LA, San Diego, and perhaps Colorado trio could all battle for the spot in the West. St. Louis looks like the best team right now in the Central Division. If I had to pick a sleeper, it might be Houston. Houston's got a pretty good pitching staff. They've got a new manager, Larry Dierker. It's going to be interesting to see how that all works out after serving 18 years in the broadcast booth. And I think our division is going to be a great race between with Atlanta and Florida. And I'm also not discounting the New York Mets. The Mets have a very good offensive club, and they're getting their pitching back. With Pulsifer and Isringhausen starting out at AAA, if they stay healthy, they'll be back in a month, and the Mets could be a little bit of a surprise team in the East.
Okay, Pete, and my opinion, pretty much like you guys, Atlanta, Cincinnati. I'm going to take Cincinnati in the Central Division. I think the addition of Deion Sanders is really going to set that club up. And San Diego in the West, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Seattle in the American League.
I've got one last question for Pete. Pete, you worked with both Skip and Larry Dierker. I was just wondering who you think would be the best manager.
It depends on whether you're talking offense or defense. No, I think Larry's going to be a good manager. One thing I think he's going to resemble, a guy I think he's going to resemble in his managing style, is Davey Johnson in his earlier years, because Larry is a computer freak. And remember when Davey Johnson first came up, he was very heavily into the computer. Larry Dierker very much like that, and he's got two good aides over there in Bill Verdon and Mike Cubbage to help him out if he gets into a little bit of a log jam in the course of a game. But I think it's going to be one of the more interesting clubs to watch this year.
Not only that, but as long as the manager has to wear a uniform, there ain't no way that I'm going to be selected as anybody's manager. You folks were coming to Turner Field over the weekend. We ask you to take Marta, and please be patient, because I still get lost here, and I know a lot of other people do too. It's a beautiful place. It's going to take a little while for all of us to get used to. It's like moving into a new house, really. So bear with us and be patient, and we'll get things worked out, and I'm sure you're going to love this ballpark. Before we go, on a sad note, we have to mention a dear friend who will not be with us at Turner Field, and that's the longtime public address announcer for the Atlanta Braves, Marshall Mann, who passed away over the winter. Marshall was, there's a word we all use, gentleman. Marshall was a gentleman, a terrific human being, a great father, a great friend to all of us, a great voice, a great talent, and brother, will he be missed at Turner Field. And all the people in the Braves who knew him, and all you people who heard him, I know you'll miss him too, and we have a little tribute we'd like to give to our deceased friend, Marshall Mann.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, good evening. Welcome to Atlanta Fulton County Stadium for tonight's game between the Montreal Expos and our Atlanta Braves.
And now, the Braves want to honor one more individual that has devoted many years of service to the Atlanta Braves. 30 years he's been making the commute from Griffin. If you add that up, that's 80 miles a day for 30 years. The voice of the Atlanta Braves, public address announcer Marshall Mann, who's been with the Braves since 1967. He's going to retire at the end of the season. Marshall, we're going to miss you.
This is Marshall Mann saying good night from Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. Buckle up for safety. Drive carefully on your way home.